right? You just a dark-skinned white man. In a real way, you know what I mean? It's very difficult not to become the dark-skinned white man if you master said system, and that's at every level. You know what I mean? My kids go to school and they come home and they like, Daddy, that ain't true. My teacher said, I got to be like, man, fuck what your teacher talking about. You know what I mean?
Right.
But it's very difficult for them to go to school and say, well, on the test, this is the right answer, but in my house, this ain't the right answer.
You recording?
That back and forth balance is a motherfucker, man. I had a specific, I'm going to give you a specific instance with my son that blew my mind, Jay. My son's like 7. Idolizes me, and I know that, right? So we was playing, I had him playing football, I'm coaching football, but Dr. Umar came to town. And this before Umar was Umar.
Right.
So he used to do like little speeches in Roseland and like little buildings and apartment, office buildings. So I was like, man, I'm gonna take all my whole football team to go see Umar. 7 years old, I take him over there. Man, they did what a 7-year-old do. He ain't listening to that shit. I don't care what the fuck they were talking about. But we leave, and I start asking him questions. I'm driving and I don't even look at him, right? Because I know he see my face expression. He'll respond to what he think I want to hear. So I won't even look at him while I'm talking to him. I was like, man, what you know about white people stink? And he's like, I don't know, Daddy. They cool. I don't know much about them. You know what I mean? I was like, all right.
Right.
I was like, what you think of them? No. He was like, oh man, they cool. He was like, man, they smart. They work hard. They live in nice houses. He just going down the line, right?
Right.
Man, they dress nice. I was like, all right, cool. Everything you say, I'm like, all right, cool. Then I get to the end of my questions about white folks, and I say, hey, man, what you think about black people? They dirty. They don't work hard. They ain't smart. Everything was negative, right? So I don't berate them. I don't say nothing bad. I say, all right, cool. Keep driving. I say, hey, man, you know you black? No, I don't even start with I say, hey, man, you know you black. I say, hey, man, you live in a nice house? Yeah, Daddy. You dress nice? Yeah, Daddy. You smart? Yeah, Daddy. You know you black, right? Yeah, Daddy. But it made me think about some shit. If he think this way about black people, and this is my son,
right?
I know what books is in my crib. I know the kind of conversations I have. I know who I am. You know what I mean? What's a kid who don't got me as their daddy in their house think of us if he thinking that shit? And you count, and I'm countering what's happening in my house versus every message he get off media is saying something fully different than what I'm talking about at the crib. And that's some challenging shit to think about. You know what I mean? Anyway, man, welcome to the Herb and Two Show. I'm here with my man, Violence Interrupter. Can we say Violence Interrupter? I know that's a brand, but I like the name Violence Interrupter.
So this is what I call myself now, Chief of Peace.
Chief of Peace. I fuck with it. Chief of Peace. Rodney Phillips, what's up, my brother?
Man, how you doing?
I'm blessed and highly favored, man. I'm blessed and highly favored. We was having a dialogue before we did the introduction, man. And, part of the reason you here today is because you are what they call it, a community violence interrupter.
Yeah.
Or interventionist.
Yeah. Professional violence interventionist.
Professional violence interventionist. Yeah. I heard that, brother. How'd you get involved in that?
I've been doing the work since 2009, and it's funny how I got involved in it. 2008, 2009. Actually, I grew up on the low end, come out to Stateway housing projects.
You can't really say just the low end, right? Stateway is its own thing.
Yeah, so
right?
Stateway.
Low end don't even start to like the other side of State Street, right? On the west side of State Street, all them buildings got names that people honored.
Yes, but you know, we always say State to the Lake.
State to the Lake, that's
real. So we call it State to the Lake.
That's real, State to the Lake.
So, you know, upon my release, I came home. And funny, some happened that I never thought I'd see in life. I came home to no home. The projects was being tore down. So with that being said, I had been a street cat. And I hustled all my life, and that's what I was based on. So that was kind of cut out for me because that's where I was from. Now, a lot of the people had been displaced to certain different neighborhoods and things like that. But as soon as I got home, an older guy that used to mentor me, Mr. Freeman, older guy, he recommended me to T.O. Hardeman at Ceasefire. He said, look, man, I got a cat that I know he was doing his work. He don't know he was doing his work, but he was doing his work without a title. And he get along with everybody, and he a fair guy. I think he'll be a good candidate for to be a violence interrupter with you. So I started doing it in first was in Grand Boulevard. That's the low end area. So the Grand Boulevard area, and from there I started doing it in the Inglewood area. Then I just started branching out to the east side, to the Hunnies, because everywhere that I went since the projects was tore down, people I knew were scattered everywhere in those neighborhoods, and they was having these conflicts because they was new to these neighborhoods. So I was able to go talk to them along with guys that I had met when I was locked up and stuff, and be a buffer in between and mediate conflicts like that.
So we like to tell the whole story here, right? So a few things. One, like, 'cause we got a larger listening audience than just the crib.
Right.
And a lot of other places, like New York, for example, they'll talk about projects, or a lot of other cities talk about their projects. But everywhere I visited, there's like a unique difference between like the buildings we had versus the buildings that I've experienced in them other cities, right? And maybe it ain't a difference in the building per se, but the culture around it is different. You know what I mean? Like in New York, projects would almost, in my opinion at least, you know, I ain't from New York, so I can't speak directly to it, but in my opinion, their version of projects, in my opinion, is more like our version of just apartments, like the culture of it. You know what I'm saying? Where the version of our projects and our buildings, like if there was a project on this side of the street and an apartment building on the other side of the street, there are unique cultural differences between those two sides of the street.
Yeah.
Right? Those communities are damn near seen as separate communities, and they could legitimately be on the same block. Right? I tell people all the time, like people talk about O Block today a whole lot, right? But I was around when the Calumet building was directly across the street from O Block, right? And I hate even saying O Block, Parkway, right? Because I'm that age, right? And I remember distinctively, like I hooped a lot when I was a shorty, so I used to hoop in Parkway all the time, right? I remember distinctively cats from Parkway would always hold their head on, we ain't from the Calumet building. Basically, like, we better than the Calumet. Right. You know what I mean? It's a very interesting thing.
I go back to that, too, because I've been in both. Parkway, Calumet, I've been over there a lot because I knew a lot of those guys. So, through my past affiliations and stuff, I used to be over there.
Probably crossed a lot of paths, brother.
I've been over there a lot. So, and I tell people that too, like Parkway was Parkways. Parkway might as well have been a suburb compared to the Calumet building.
And they was across the street. You know what I'm saying?
It's two worlds. It's just like, I'm out of state way. And so on Michigan and Wabash, on straight down 36th Street, you have these apartments called the Davis Apartments.
Yep.
Now, they are two different worlds.
Two completely different
worlds that, you know, the projects is like a city within itself.
Within itself. I always make that argument. And therein lies the difference between, like I said, them other places like New York, like Marcy or Red Hook. Yeah. They ain't different. They just Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Like the residents don't see it as that's Marcy. No, this is Brooklyn.
Like I've been to New York and some of their projects do the violence prevention work I did, and so I met some cats, and that's how I get around with going to different cities. The unique thing about Chicago is that, like in their projects, all races live there. Different races is a whole thing. Mm-hmm. So in our projects, and just the way our city, what people don't realize, it's so segregated that you don't encounter different races until you leave your neighborhood, where you have to go in there. That's why we have all this different type of racial tension that people don't talk about, because we never lives amongst different ethnic groups. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's no engagement.
Yeah, it's no.
I tell people all the time, man. Specifically when I was a shorty, like I tell people, white people was like Bigfoot. Like you heard about them, but you ain't see them.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? They wasn't at my corner stores. They wasn't in my teachers. They wasn't around. You're right. You didn't see them till you left the neighborhood.
I came in contact with them because as a shorty and the low end being in close proximity to downtown, I would go downtown to hustle. Mm-hmm. So that's how I seen them a lot. And another reason I would see Only time I would see white people actually by my projects because I live across the expressway from one of the most racist places in America, Bridgeport. You know,
talk about it.
Then you have the White Sox Stadium. So a lot of them would walk past. That's where we would come. And it was crazy. And now that I look at it, they would walk past our projects and look over there like we was an experiment.
But check this shit out. This is also mind-blowing to me. Because that's really, it's across the expressway, but one, they designed the city like that.
Yeah, the expressway was built.
The expressway was built specifically to create that kind of...
Yeah, to stop people.
Right.
Mayor Daley built the expressway to stop because blacks had started coming from this city, as we know, the black belt from south, and Chicago was expanded.
Mm-hmm.
And he purposely built the expressway to stop them from coming from Bridgeport, his neighborhood. Mm-hmm. So what he did is he made vertical ghettos, which became the projects.
Absolutely. So I went to Dunbar, right?
Okay.
So I got a lot of stay-away homies, right? When I was in high school, right? But it was, you just said, across from the expressway, and this is going to transition into some of the conversation around You Didn't See Nothing, the podcast, Pulitzer Prize podcast,
right?
Winner that y'all was involved in. But I want to bring something up, just in the dynamic of that stay-away versus what's happening over in Bridgeport, which is where the Sox Park is, right? Because legitimately, you take away that expressway, they're across the street from each other.
Yep.
Right? But the reason you would see those kids coming through Stay-Away is because one corner over, you got De La Salle, which is one of the most prominent Catholic high schools in the city of Chicago. And it was white dominant, Bridgeport dominant at the time. I think it's boys and girls now, but back in that time, it was just all boys.
Yeah.
Right? And the opulence on this side, I just read this. You know what the average net worth in Bridgeport is, bro? $7 million. That don't even make logical sense to me. The average home price, the average income was like $80,000. But the average net worth was like $7 million. And the breakdown, the way I thought about it, it wasn't even nothing attached to this to explain this stat. I just thought about it in this way. So you bought a original daily. We ain't talking about the second man. We talking about the original daily. The original daily. Even back to some of the gang culture in Chicago, people don't understand, right?
Hamburger
it ain't just
Club
us.
Daily.
Yeah, it's everybody's a gang member here.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So the original Mayor Daley was an Irish gang leader, right? When he understood the game of politics, he understood the power of the mayor's office. He brought in all the Irishmen to city jobs, right? And this is 60, 70 years ago.
Yeah.
Right? And what they did was they brought up all the properties in Bridgeport. They also owned all the businesses in Bridgeport. So my mindset on how they become, this generation becomes like worth $7 million is you have 3 generations of home ownership, you got 3 generations of business development, and you got 3 generations of protected city jobs. So if you in that first generation, you just getting your money together.
Right.
That second generation, you might say, hey man, Dad, I want to go to college. Because you got a crib, you can mortgage the crib, send that kid to college, he ain't got no college debt. He come back, go to college, he might be the first wave of persons that got a job at like IBM or something like that.
Right.
He come home, he going to the same neighborhood, he gonna buy a crib on the same block. You gonna invest in that crib. Now you got 2 homeowners, right, and a job, and it's two home ownerships, 2 jobs, 2 good jobs. That third child comes along, say, hey man, I don't even want to go to college. I want to own a coffee shop or a pizzeria, right? But we could pull equity from all the things that we own, and as that first generation begins to die out, you just inheriting all that they have. So now today you got a $50,000, $75,000 job, but you own 2-3 cribs in the neighborhood and a business. So you about $7 million.
I wanted to just say that's interesting, kind of what y'all were talking about in regards to the expressway, especially in the 2 separate neighborhoods, because now in the low end, I guess we'll call it, it's all the gentrification. So I'm wondering like how that tension plays a part, or how that dynamic plays a part in the tension from the gentrification that's happening now, because now it's very mixy over what Stateway was. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So that was just interesting.
What you think?
It's funny because I have a first person view of how Stateway is. Actually, my mother and sister stay over there now. So part of what she's saying is true far as like, it's different, but now more over there, it's classism. Like, you got the people who had the right to return through the Section 8 program. Then you had the middle class who probably rent the condos over there. And then you have the wealthy who buy the homes over there. And the way it works is that they don't like a lot of returning citizens company. They call them the undesirables. They don't like us coming back over there. But you got people who've been over there all their life. This is all they know. And one of the ways that they do it, they set up these they block clubs, but it's like their ideas are taken more serious because they homeowners. And so they have these what they did, they set up these to stop people from coming, and they do little things like they go to the alderman and complain, and they set up the parking system so you could be possibly told or ticketed enough you wouldn't want to come over there. So they, they just set the divide where, like, the homeowners won't even have their kids come in the playground. Or if they doing a Halloween, some certain kids attend. So it's still set up divided, not so much as color, because I've been over there since inception. They built it over there, like, actually have probably more Chinese people than whites. But with the Chinese people, they seen and not heard. You really don't hear them. But they probably live a third of over there. They just don't come out.
I said I'd definitely be seeing them.
Yeah, but they don't talk.
But what do you think about that, though, in regards to like the violence prevention stuff, right? Because it is a lot of, you do still hear gunshots, you know what I mean? People are still getting killed. They breaking into cars, whatever the case may be. You don't want to go to the park. I mean, I literally was running from over there because it was some boys just walked across the street, beat up an old man. Asked him, did he have a gun on him? Right there on 39th and Cottage.
Yeah.
Beat him up in the middle of the street. He had to be like a 65-year-old man. And I'm like telling my sisters, come on, let's go, because I wasn't sure what was about to happen. So, like, what are the conversations that you're having with these kids? Because it seems to be kids that's, kind of causing a lot of the havoc. Or is it the kids, would you say? And, like, what kind of conversations are you having, and what would be the balance to prevent, because, nobody wants to be in danger either. So, like, I guess what I'm saying is, like, what would be the balance for, keeping everybody in the place, in the neighborhood that they grew up, but then also trying to, like, taper this chaos? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm processing what you're saying.
Yeah, and I know I said a lot, so sorry.
But no, so this is for me, like, so when you say adolescents and you talk about teenagers and kids, and I'm not making no excuse for them, because you're accountable. A lot of adolescents just do crime, like, I don't even call it, it's victimization. It's just things like, if you see, it's not like it's disorganized confusion. It's youth being youth without no guidance that snowballs into bigger things where there's nobody there to put correction tape on their behavior. That's the thing. It's no more than, like, it happens all over, but it's different outlets and different peoples in the community who give those type of adolescents before it snowballs resources. So I think a lot of the communities that we are in, for one, we have a communication problem. I think some of the people that moved into these neighborhoods, they don't communicate with their neighbor, and some of them, quite honestly, I think classism is worse than racism. They look down on the people was there, and you exclude them. It's like, what's that writer? Richard Wright. They treat them as the visible person instead of coming out. You know what I'm saying? Like, you in the community, you in the neighborhood now. You got to make it safe. Talk to them, embrace them, and things of that nature.
We had a conversation a couple weeks ago where we was talking about rebranding, right? And branding in general. And I was like, man, I'm sick of people thinking that they fucking brands. They not brands, right?
Yeah.
But again, I want us to be very conscious that imaging and messaging dictates behavior. So you just said community. When I was a shorty, we called it the neighborhood.
Right.
Today they took off neighbor, it's just hood.
Yeah.
We're not conscious of how that impacts, right? But it does have an impact.
Yeah, have a big impact.
Right? We're not connected at all anymore, right? So I think for me, man, you know, I probably align more with you than anybody. Not anybody, but the larger ideas. Like, I'm empathetic oftentimes. Right. But I do think they are just shorties, right? And I think whenever you get in the room with even the shorties with the worst behavior you could think of,
yeah.
When a man shows up, boys sit down. I don't care what he done did. I don't care what. Even when you said either they was whooping on a 65-year-old man, I have no context of what happened. I don't. But I almost can bet if that 65-year-old man stood up like a man, now that's a nuanced statement, because that could mean a whole lot of shit.
Right.
It probably would have never got to that. Probably would have never got to that, in my opinion, right? But I think what's happened is, over the time and over the years, we've lost the value of community. We've lost the value in manhood. We've lost value in all that. So shorties oftentimes come to the table now, like, even with men, challenging manhood.
Right.
Like, you ain't no man anyway. I've been in them situations too. Give me a couple weeks, a couple months with that kid, he'd be crying when he got to be separated from me. Same kid, he told me fuck me in the beginning. Give me a week with him, and it's like he's endeared to me.
Right.
You know what I mean? But that's only, you can only access that through empathy. You got to, like you said, you got to be able to see him.
Yeah.
He want to be seen. You know what I mean?
It's like, I tell people all the time, like, so in the work I do, the violence prevention work, everybody be like, well, what's the secret sauce? I say relationship building. And trust, it ain't no secret sauce. Either you put it in time or you not.
This is what you gonna get. Yeah. What's the African proverb? They say a boy that's rejected by the village will burn that motherfucker down to feel his warmth.
Yeah. So you can't even throw money at it. Money helps. But I tell people all the time, you have to really, like, how I gauge people who sincere, authentic about this work, who really roll up their sleeves and take their time and do it. Like, a lot of people that even do this work, to be honest with you, they don't communicate with shorty them. They're not consistent. You got to be consistent, and you can't be scared of them. A lot of the people are scared of the people. Like, you know, I got buddies and people I know. I be like, man, Joe, you used to become the prey. You used to be the predator. What are you scared of short? You scared to, because this is the whole thing. You can't mediate no conflict without confronting level. And most people don't like to confront in level. Confronting level has nothing to do with disrespecting. It's about being assertive, establish relationship, and standing on and showing him, man, I care for you. This is why this had to go a certain way, and we work together.
You talked about the segregation in Chicago, right? I got a unique Chicago experience, right, in the sense that, like, I grew up on 95th Street, but I always went to school on the low end. Like, I went to Beasley.
Yeah.
Most kids that go to Beasley don't go to Dunbar. I went to Dunbar.
Right.
Right. My family was heavy in the Ida B's and heavy in Argyle Gardens.
Okay.
Right. So I spent a lot of time in Argyle Gardens. I spent a lot of time in the Ida B's. When I was young, I was in the Gardens a lot. When I'm in high school, I'm at Dunbar, so I'm in Ida B's a lot. Right. But I'm from 95th Street.
Right.
Right. 95th Street is very interesting, right? In the sense that the Hundreds was always wild as hell. But 95th Street was almost like that building on the other side of the projects.
Right.
It's a different culture, a couple blocks away. Right? Now I hoop too. So we all engaged each other, but I went home to some other shit than what we was dealing with at the park.
Right.
You know what I mean? But again, like I said, I always went to school on the low end, so I had this real exposure. I had this real wide grasp of the city of Chicago that my peers wasn't getting. Right? Most of my homies went to school in our neighborhood. You know what I mean? I never had that experience. I never went to school in my neighborhood in my life.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I had all the relationships from my neighborhood because I could hoop and I just, a kid. You out here. You know what I'm saying? But then I had all these other relationships. I had a bunch of relationships on the low end because my whole school life was on the low end. So it gave me, I moved through Stateway. I moved through the Robert Taylors. I moved through the Ida B's comfortably because these was my friends too.
Right.
But I go back to 95th Street, and I got partners who ain't never walked inside a CHA building in their life. And they got a perspective of what's going on in the CHA building that's absent of the reality of it. Nice. So even though we all black, we segregated in the motherfucker too.
Hey, it's funny you say that. And like me, I grew up in Stateway all my life, but I have family members that come from different parts of the cities. So I was a person like hung in Inglewood a lot. My auntie lived in Jeffrey Manor. And then the unique perspective of I had a relative live in every project on the low end. So daddy from Ida B. Wells, mom from Stateway. Auntie live in Newtown, another auntie live in Robert Taylor's, 3. And then when you get to Robert Taylor's, it's different because the 40s is different from the whole. And 51st, like if you don't know it, you know what I'm saying? So, but one of the things was like, and it's crazy because I would get into it with my father. My father, sisters and brothers, they had houses and stuff. And we laugh about this now. But as kids, kids gonna be kids, so they used to tease us about living in the projects. The experience like, man, y'all live on top of each other, this and that. But I've noticed like in the 80s, like I say 83, 84, when the crack era just started hitting as a shorty, I would go to my auntie them house. Now it was certain things they wouldn't have because addictions and things. Or I go to my friends' blocks over there, and they would have kerosene heaters and no lights on and stuff. So I say, hey, you gonna talk about me? At least we got some lights. At least we got, but we, that's the thing. They used to be like, oh, y'all some project kids that speed it up. Another thing they used to buy when they first tore down the buildings, when I would do violence prevention in these neighborhoods, and I would go, when I got serious about it, I would go to a lot of these neighborhood meetings and things, and everybody in there would say, man, that's the project people moved over here, started all that shit. They did up this, they did that, they did this. And one of the things, like, even, and you know how Chicago moved, like, even with the organizations. So for me, since I was well-rounded in the organization, I would go to all and be embraced in all the neighborhoods that my organization was. That's how I would go, and move around. You know what I'm saying? But even on that scale, I remember a conversation was with cats out of Inglewood, and some of the cats from our project would gather up on the block. Because one thing about the project is, if one person over there got a house over there, everybody gonna come visit them. They gonna be 20 to 30 deep. That's intimidating for people, even though they ain't doing that, they just there. I learned some over that block. Even we came from the same organization, some of the guys was intimidated by that. Like, man, y'all can't be coming, y'all can't do this, you can't do that. I had a conversation with one of the guys who's a leader over there. I say, bro, just take this for instance. I say, what if the city said intimate domain over Inglewood and shut y'all shit down, took y'all shit and say y'all got to come in there with us? I say, if you ever been to the projects and know about the projects, they embrace everybody. if you really know, they not gonna say you can't come over here.
I was really gonna bring that up. In my experience, right? It's funny how people view the buildings.
Yeah.
But the blocks was always more savage than the buildings to me. Always. And I think the buildings represented some level of community that we don't have in the neighborhoods, in the blocks.
Cause of the closeness, like, so I was telling them, I said, you would be embraced. You wouldn't be read off. We understand that you were part of our organization. It ain't your fault they took the shit. I said, so you have to empathize with why these people over here.
Mm-hmm. That's what you were just talking about a little bit earlier, empathy though. But okay, so y'all talked about, I want to know if y'all think it's necessary, if what's happening in Chicago specifically is kind of like a necessary evil, I'll say. Because what I think happened, and y'all tell me if y'all agree, I know when I was growing up, you just didn't go to the low end, right? If you didn't, my friends, and stuff was bad and stuff like that, so everybody ventured down there, but it was a journey, right? It was something you weren't supposed to be doing, but you went and did it anyway. So you just, in order to avoid violence, you just stayed away from the projects, right? So then, like you said, a lot of people got displaced when they knocked down the projects, and everybody went to these different parts of the city, which is why I think the violence is more scattered now. Before it was more like, localized to the low end, pretty much, or to wherever the projects was at, and now everybody is in different parts of the cities, different sets, I guess, or whatever the case may be, and so now it seems to be a lot of violence in every neighborhood, mainly. So do y'all think that that's what actually happened? And then again, kind of back to the gentrification thing, but also the trying to come together back as like a neighborhood, like, was that then necessary,
I don't agree with that.
You don't think that's what happened?
I don't. So if you know anything about like street culture, well, at least when I was younger, let's put it like that, because it might be a little different today.
Right.
But from my understanding and from my experience, in street culture when I was younger, it was a lot of get money people on the low end. The murderers was from the hunters. I ain't even gonna lie to you. The gunslingers was from the hunters. I think what happens is that we don't understand how media works. The low end is valuable land. Right? And not only valuable land, we was having a conversation really before we got into it about just how white supremacy kind of dominates ideas, right? The low end of the city only really is a marker for what we came after we came from the South. That's all it is. But the real estate, the architecture, like, you can't compare the low end of the city to damn near nowhere else in the city. Maybe some West Side neighborhoods. How many gravestones you got in the hundreds? That ain't there. That's some of the most valuable real estate in this city. You know what I mean? When I was shorty, think about what King Drive is today. You just said the whole. I remember you wouldn't get out of the car over there.
Yeah.
But today they selling cribs for $2.3 million. Right? So, what's the building right there on 47th and
Michigan?
Yeah.
Rosenwald.
The Rosenwald. The Rosenwald been vacant since us at Beasley.
It's revamped now.
Right? But what I found out was the owners never changed. So what that means is they left that building vacant for 30 plus years. What's the taxes on that building? That building is bigger than the Carter from New Jack City, G. That building is a block. It might be 3 city blocks long. Right? Yeah. You got the front and both sides.
Right.
What's the property taxes on a building like that? And how much money are you willing to lose to cause blight to bring down the property value in the rest of the neighborhoods? You know what I'm saying? Because just making that building what it was for those 30 plus years, right, brought down the property value probably for a good 2 miles away from there.
Strategic.
It's strategy. It's strategy.
Strategic.
Right? So even when you say, E, you was always told not to go to the low end. Again, like I think I have a unique experience. Right? When I get off the bus at 95th Street every day, It was going down. It was violent central at the 95th Street L station.
So I'm gonna say this about like the low end, because I'm a real student of it. Like, one of the things about the low end is when people came from the South here, them gravestones that he talk about, them was like what Nat King Cole and all them stayed. Then you had this was like the black belt, the business, like Bronzeville, Chicago was the second urban black place besides Harlem. And
I'm gonna give you one more. It's really more dominant than Harlem. If you start pulling back the layers of the Harlem Renaissance, them is mostly Chicago cats.
Yeah. So you look at like even like the numbers come out to Bronzeville today, we call it a lottery. Teddy Rowe brothers, Teddy Rowe them, and how it's significant.
Policy kings back then.
Right. It's significant how we talk about Bridgeport, because we know what's over there. So they was right there. So the part of the low end I come from, 35th, is called the red light district. Mm-hmm. That's where all your numbers, all your late night shenanigans is going on right there. And then, you had this land that really scratched it. Like the low end actually started from Roosevelt. They just put a cap on it and say it started on 35th. It started on Roosevelt back, and then you had the scratch of when the West Side came. When the people came from the South went to the West Side, they was over there, now Jewtown, Abler, and then ventured into North Lawndale and all that. That's how you have those sections that's black like it was. Mm-hmm. But getting back to the when they say it was violent, the one thing about the low end is it always had structure. So it was controlled violence more than any other set. If we talk about street culture, you could attest to that. It was like, the street culture was everywhere, but on the low end, it was strict structure with it, because you can't, it's like, there's no escaping. You gotta do what you told, because you right there with them, and you can't get away. It's like, ain't nowhere to go. It's right there. You go to the store, you gonna see him. You gonna see your auntie, you gonna see him. So it was like a city within a city.
I agree.
And they own, so it wasn't as violent as people put it, but it's set on, like he said, expensive land. Every project set on expensive land except Argyle. If you just break it down, Cabrini Green, Gold Coast, Abler, University of Illinois, Chicago, which is the Village, Stateway, IIT, White Sox, Bridgeport, Otter B. Wells, Lakefront, Expressway,
downtown,
Henry Horner's Rockwell United Center, West Loop, as we call it now. So when you look at what happened when Daley made them decisions in the 50s and the 60s, he had wanted to keep, like when he built the expressways, the South, the Stevenson and the Dan Ryan, it was basically about keeping blacks in place. But it was valuable land he was on. They realized their mistake, and his son came back to snatch the land back with the CHA transformation. Yep. So it's two significant things in Chicago that changed the landscape of our city: the CHA transformation and the 2010 Renaissance of the school. Them two things are things that put us in a position we is now with the displacement and the violence.
I agree 100%, and I'm glad you broke it down that way, because most people don't know the historical context of none of this, nor do they know the political implications of none of this. Right, so it's very difficult for them to say, man, Daley created the black community. Then it's very difficult to say Daley #2 displaced the black community. Right. But then there's nuances to these arguments, though, and there's things happening in between them too. Yeah. Right. So one of the other things that most people don't know is that the vast majority of CHA residents, specifically Southside, when they got displaced, the neighborhood that had to take on the most residents, and this is a political conversation, was South Shore. Yeah. Now, why is that? Because they want to create the same kind of chaos, more lakefront property. Yeah. Think about the Venezuelan influx right now. Take y'all to the east side and see what that looked like. So you got the displacements of the CHA. You get why did they settle there? They didn't settle there. That's where they've been pushed to. You understand me? And they're going to it's going to cause all of the chaos. It's going to have, just because the very essence and the nature of being in a country that you don't know nothing about.
Right.
You're going to gravitate and figure out a way to survive. And usually that's going to be through means outside of the norm. Right? But now you're going to challenge the underworld of that community because now you're impeding on their business. It just is what it is. And that's going to create conflict.
Right.
And as that creates conflict, that's going to drive property values down. That's going to make people leave. And the immigrant population is going to eventually have to get out too. Everybody's going to get out because they're going to come with an idea that says, we're going to clean this up. But in cleaning it up, now the value's been depleted. Right. We can buy it for pennies on a dollar.
And you got to look at the immigrant population will take them jobs that's going to be needed, and they know they ain't got to pay them premium to do it.
Absolutely.
So it's like
it all works for them.
Yeah, this organized confusion right here, organized chaos. Mm-hmm. And I was finna say that the East Side because of the transformation things, came one of the volatile communities. Like I can actually say, and I'm a street cat through and through, that East Side is very volatile. Like it's a. I go to the Hunters in Inglewood before I go. Yeah. It's just something different now. Come up as a shorty. The South Shore community was a nice community, the biggest apartments, beautiful, all of that, you know. But now, like you said, when you look at like so Parkway in instance, Parkway ain't nothing but displaced low-end kids that came from there. You look at all these stats that did, like, especially when you talk about like 79 X's and all that, but you talk about that, there's displaced people from the buildings that didn't put their own culture on that spin. We knew them as traditional neighborhoods when we grew up. Now it's a fruit punch clique talking about real street culture. You know what I'm saying?
That's real.
So, but yeah, I think East Side is the most volatile, and it's a different culture. I think right now, even Inglewood is influxed in a way, as it's influxed in a way with a lot of different populations.
It is. A lot of immigrants over there too.
Yeah, and people seeing the value. If you look up, traditional whole blocks is gone in this place with different ethnic groups. And you know you wouldn't see that like on a 57th and Troop or something. You don't see that. You know what I'm saying?
There's whole blocks of houses missing in Inglewood because of the train tracks that's coming through there now.
Yeah.
Right? That blew my mind when I started going up into the neighborhood like, damn, it used to be houses here. But I want to bring us back to the low end real quick.
Right.
Right? Because when we talk about the low end, we often talk about, at least when we talk about it, it's from the context of, like you said, from State to the Lake, all the black neighborhoods.
Right.
Right? But Bridgeport is on 35th Street too.
Right.
Right? And Bridgeport never gets lumped into the crime or audacious behavior conversation. It never gets linked into that conversation. But if you do a deep dive into Bridgeport, and Bridgeport is a very white community wrapped up in it's kind of like an island.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's surrounded by black and Hispanic communities once you go further west.
Right.
Right? But you was involved in a Pulitzer Prize winning podcast called You Didn't See Nothing. And the concept, the podcast was written around in 1997. There was a young kid named Leonard Clark who was beaten into a coma by, was it 3 or 4 young white boys in Bridgeport? I think it was 3.
I think it was 4.
Maybe 4? 3 or 4. I can't remember the exact number, don't quote me, right? But essentially, those 4 white boys were children of assumed mafia members.
Right.
Assume. I ain't gonna say they was verified, but all the behaviors attached to it verified it.
Right.
Right? But you never, and they beat this boy for getting air in a tire. He went over there to get air. Listen, all this shit is so interesting to me. The boy goes to Bridgeport to get air in a tire. Not that we don't got gas stations on our side, but their air is cheaper
Air free.
Air free over there.
That's why they went over there.
They went $7 million, but they air free. Across the expressway. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So he goes over there to get free air, and just by the sheer nature of him being in the neighborhood, they jump out the car and beat the boy damn near brain dead. Not even damn near. They did beat him brain dead.
Cognitive damage.
Yeah, cognitive damage, man. But we never attached that brand to the behaviors of Bridgeport kids. And this ain't the only story like this from Bridgeport.
And it's crazy, like me growing up. So Bridgeport is the worst kept secret because we was warned as shorties about crossing that bridge. And just like
that was like E-parents telling her not to go to the low end.
But what it is like
we still
as
went.
a shorty, how many of us actually listen to our parents?
That's real.
Because you tell us don't do it, we want to do it. So for me, my connection and my peers that grew up, it was something in Bridgeport we was attached to, was the Chicago White Sox. We liked in sports. We grew up playing sports, and we would go to the White Sox. But the White Sox offered the opportunity for us to hustle. We would sell our tickets through over there. So in neighborhoods, you have invisible lines that only the ones who inhabit that neighborhood know about. So when it came to Bridgeport and the White Sox, as soon as you cross the bridge and you see Wentworth, right, that's as far as you will go, because actually not the White Sox Stadium you see now, but when I grew up, it was Comiskey Park on the other side of the street. And on that other side of the street, in the back of the White Sox was Armour Park, where Lamar Clark then went, and it's a gas station on 31st.
Yep.
That's the invisible line that you don't supposed to go behind that park, because that park shields and obstructs the view of the public seeing you. So nobody ain't gonna even know you over there because of this hulking park. So we used to know, like, man, you don't go over there. But some of us had to go over there because we school shop 35th and Halsted, things like that. We'll go with our mom. Now, I remember going with my mom, and they blatantly would call you a nigga.
Oh, yeah.
They know. Hey,
I've been called a nigga twice in this city. Once over there and once in Beverly. Them the only two places I've been called a nigga.
So going there, you know what I'm saying? It was an unwritten rule. But here's the thing. When you have kids, Lord Clark, them at the time probably was teens, 12, 13. And like you said, like the closest gas station for where we was in the project was on 35th and King Drive. But you have to have money to get there. I didn't even know this, so you gotta look at kids are adventurous. I didn't even know that was free over there, because I was told not to go back there.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Go back there.
That's real.
So you know what I'm saying? I didn't know I didn't know about being back there. Another thing that familiarized me with Bridgeport was how the police used to do us in the early 80s, get us and drop us off over there.
Yep.
So you know what I'm saying?
I know about that.
Yeah. See, that's another thing. You get on the wrong side of the police, and we know the police station that they take us to is 51st and Wentworth, or it was the police on 48th and Federal that's inside the projects. Put you in the car, you going west, and you're like, where the hell is he taking me to? Because I know
a random alley.
I know that, okay, either he's gonna jump on the expressway, we're gonna go 51st this way. Now he's going over the bridge.
Across the expressway.
And now they drop us off.
Because that was the consequences of being over there.
Yeah, that was frequently. They would drop us off over there. And so I knew that. So when it came, I remember like yesterday when it happened to the young man, Leonard, and the other guy was with him was Cleavon. And I'm real good friends with their family. Like, you know what I'm saying? But when they said what had happened, the word was going around the projects. When you in survival mode you hear things and don't hear them. At the time, I'm hustling, I'm a product of my vibe, and I'm not as conscious. And the norm was they beat somebody over there. So our thing was like, okay, we know not to be over there. You know what I'm saying? We didn't know. It's like you could be so caught up in your world, but the world is watching up in there. But you in there, you just living. And it didn't dawn on me how much this captivated the public eye till I seen Bill Clinton speak on it. He's the president at the time. And then I seen Mary J. Blige them, and then I witnessed the media circus with all the preachers and all that stuff.
You just brought something to my attention. I didn't even realize this shit. Bill Clinton came to Beasley in context to talking about the situation.
Yeah.
He came to the city, and he came to Beasley when I was at Beasley, because I'm a kid too around this time.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that visit to Beasley kind of stamped Beasley in the city, and not even in the city, in the country, as being one of these best schools in the nation.
Right.
You know what I mean? It wasn't that, but that showing up of the president kind of branded as that.
Yeah.
And him showing up there is because it was on State Street, and it represented him being back in that area, supporting what was going on.
Right.
Damn, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy how it tie in. So I remember like guys older than me, and they'd be in the barbershop talking about that. They was pissed, like, man, they did that to Leonard, man, we ought to go over there and do X, Y, Z. You know what I'm saying? Around the time, unbeknownst to me, I didn't know Johan like that at that time. Johan was kicking it with some of the other guys, and they would get together and talk about some of the issues because he was a reporter at the time. But he was cool with one of my best friends. So he was real cool with him, where he could rotate through there, because one of my best friends was actually one of the main guys, the guy over there. You know what I'm saying? And I was familiar with, I seen him a few times, but that wasn't my thing. I was hustling. So, you know what I'm saying? I would chime in and I go back to hustling. So that had happened. We heard about it, and then when I seen him, I seen the damage. And I knew his mom real well. Knew his stepdad real well. And I was like, damn, but I'm like, damn, that's like, what could I do about it at the time? I didn't understand it. Fast forward, years go past. I go to federal prison in 2012. Go to federal prison, and it's just ironic. You got on your jumpsuit, you ain't got your property, and when you pull up on the bus and you come out in federal prison, people ask you what city you from. The first person that asked me that was Johan. He said, what city you from? I said, I'm Chicago. He like, well, he like the low end. I'm like the low end. Like, well, he's 35th Street. He said, all right, I'm gonna holler at you after you get your property. Come back out. He like, man, I used to be on the low end, and he get to know him. He said, I know this, that. Yeah, he said, and he was like, do you know these cats? I said, let me show you something. I showed him my picture. I was like, them really my friends. You know what I'm saying? So as we talking, me and Johans eventually became good friends, and the reason why I worked in the library. Johan stayed in education, writing, and he always talked about how he wanted to revisit the Leonard Clark situation. And me and him would walk the yard. He'd be in a leather shop. That's why I have a lot of respect for him. Like, he got his own gym shoe.
I know.
And he learned, and I remember him being with us, because the people, in prison, they just would play sports and lift weights. Yo wasn't that type of guy. He was an intellectual guy. So we was both, that's what drawn us to each other. He said, man, I'm gonna go in his leather shop and just learn. And she ain't know nothing. Started making bags and all type of things as the years progressed. You know what I'm saying? So as I got closer to going home, me and him would talk, and we got in the halfway house. And he said, man, I'm I'm going to keep in touch with you. I may need you. I said, well, whatever. He called me and he said, man, I'm putting this, I'm finally doing what I want to do. I got these people to bag me, and I'm going to put this podcast together. And he told me what he was going to call it and stuff. But I'm still doing me. He met with a few guys, and they would tell him, yeah, they're going to do X, Y, Z. But when it came to getting on the camera and things of that nature, because people got to realize, like, that is like what you call, like politics will call it a heater case. Well, it's a lot surrounding that. A lot of people don't want to be attached to that because, like you said, around that time you got the mafia, you got the preachers, you got your people that's so loud, you got all these players up in this. So, you know, I think he reached out to Leonard, and Leonard spoke with him a few times, but Lamar really didn't want to tell his story. So he got with me. He said, man, I wrapped it up. But man, if I can get an interview, could you get him to give me an interview? I say, bro, I'm gonna reach out. So it's just ironic. At the time, Leonard and my sister was working in the same place. And I told my sister, I say, tell Leonard I want to holler at him. And I knew what that was going to do because in my neighborhood, Sir Shorty used to look up to me. Mm-hmm. And he told my sister, like, man, I'll holler at Hot Rod. Because he's like, I'll holler at him. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So when I told him about it, he told me, he said, man, I really don't want to, I'm really past that. And I was explaining to him, and Leonard is a good guy. He was saying, man, I'm past that. We reconciled with the family and sort of those things. And I just told him, like, but your story needs to be told because the damage you suffered. You don't owe them shit. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? And he said, let me think about it. He called me the next day. He said, I tell you what, I'll do an interview, but you got to do the interview. I ain't want to be around nobody else. You got to do it. So I called Yo and his team. I say, man, they want me to do it. They say, cool. I said, I ain't never did an interview though. Like, they like, we're gonna mic you up, prep you, so I'm gonna talk to him. And I say, because he don't want nobody around at all. And I gave him my word. And I know his mother, I gave her the word that ain't no harm. I'm not gonna put him in a place, you know what I'm saying? But so Yo was like, man, Rod, just be yourself and just ask him the questions. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Just like we doing now. So they mic'd me up. We went to the Starbucks on 35th at first, but that didn't work. Then he worked at downtown. We met exactly Sweet Greens. We did lunch, the silent place, and he came in, and I told him comfortable. I put the mic on him and stuff. I put his stuff on him, and we just talked. We just like, it was an organic interview. It wasn't nothing made up. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? I asked him the questions that I was asked to ask him. Then I asked him a few, and he just opened up. He was comfortable, and then and I asked him that in the interview. I say, man, what made you now want to tell your story after act? He said, man, because it was you. You know, and I know where you at with. He knew my heart, like I say. Mm-hmm. You have to tell your story. I say, because, man, you know, you don't want ain't nothing like hearing out your mouth. And from there we did it, and we did our thing. And like you said, Lord and behold, we want an apostle. I never thought of that or looked at it like that. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? I just was doing a solid for Yo. Because Yo wanted, you know, that was his dream. Was his thing. And me and Yo was close. Even like now, I rock with Yo, like his gym shoes. I wanted to ambassador for his gym shoes, his campaign, Be the Odds. He talked about a lot of things. Me and Yo actually connected this summer. We did the They have every summer they do a celebration of the 1919 riots on the low end, and they go to different spots and they talk. And Yo actually spoke. Him and Dr. Lanswell spoke at Auburn Park where the beating took place at. They spoke on that part of the things, and then I spoke at Emmett Till Church on my experience in the projects on 42nd and State.
Super dope.
Yeah.
So I just want to add some quick context, man. Then we got a segment I want you to participate in. But basically, man, You Didn't See Nothing is a podcast you can find on all your Apple Podcasts, man. I advise anybody who hasn't heard it, go check it out. It's an audio podcast. It's probably like 8 episodes, I think, if I remember correctly. But in context of like the culture and the understanding of Chicago, like I don't even think there's nothing out there that could really get you as close to the real culture of Chicago than You Don't See Nothing. There's real racism. There's real corrupt politicians. Like names you know too. These ain't even like names you know. These are people you know. Right? It's street violence. It's really the breakdown of Chicago in a way that most people don't get to experience. It's like them invisible lines that if you don't live here, you don't know about it. Yeah. If you live here, you know about it. Matter of fact, these new generation kids probably don't even know about it as in-depthly as we probably knew about it because they don't navigate the neighborhoods the way we used to. Right. But we got another segment, man. We got a segment we call Dinner Time, right? We stole the idea, the title from Bump J. But the concept, man, is our tagline is Herb and Two's intellectual thuggery, right? So we want to give you an opportunity to participate in the game called Dinner Time. And what it is, man, you have 2 dinner guests. Right? You can pick 2 dinner guests from any era in time, dead or alive, and one has to be an intellect and one has to be a thug. And y'all got to have a problem that y'all want to solve. And these 2 guys, you're going to bring them together to solve whatever this problem is. Anybody, past or present.
Okay. I'm going to go past. And they both grew up in same eras. Malcolm X and David Barksdale.
David Barksdale. I've been wondering all day what organization you was involved in. Now I know. No, I rock with it. Now, because people who not from the city or people who tune in from other places might not know who these people are. Of course, Malcolm has a brand that most people would know. Yeah. Explain David Barksdale to the people who wouldn't know.
So David Barksdale was the founder of the Disciples, but was interested in not just looking at it from a gang. The reason I say both of them, because I think both of them had the ideas of uniting their people. But it was, I could have, like, I imagine what would have happened if Malcolm X was able to pour into him in that era, which he had the concept because the organization was born out of racial things like Inglewood, where they was fighting different races and things of that nature, and they wanted to become political, because at that time, the civil rights era, they was just as much involved in the civil rights era as the Black Panthers, as Jeff Ford them. In that time, they just didn't have the limelight went on them, but they started programs, and that's what his thing was, the unification of their people. So I look at like, if he could have aligned with a Malcolm X, that could have been big. Then I look at, from Malcolm X's perspective, he would have got some real warriors who had no direction and would have stood with him firm and probably protected him different. So I would love to see that combination.
Yeah, man, I appreciate that answer, man. Malcolm is probably one of the most mentioned people on the show when we do that segment, but this is the first time we heard David Barksdale, and I got a certain appreciation for that answer, man. So, man, we appreciate that answer. Man, you know, Herb usually closes out the show. You know, I'm usually the B mic, so this is new and uncomfortable for me. You know what I mean? But I want to thank my brother Hot Rod for coming on, man. We appreciate you, man. Great conversation. I salute the podcast, of course. I salute the work you're doing in the streets, man. I want you to know you're always welcome here, man. You want to get something off your chest, you got something to promote, slide on us. Man, we more than welcome you. Man, tune in, like, subscribe, and keep up with the pod, y'all. This is Herb and Two. Peace out. Assalamu alaikum.